Alright, mail just came. Hopefully I got some parts that I've been waiting for. We're going to build this guy up. Let's see what we got. First, from Get FPV, wow, these came quick. I'm in Florida, and Get FPVs in Florida, and they came quick. These are my DYS 35 amp ESCs, the new BL Heli 32-bit. I'm going to be using these on a different build because I have something else that I hope is in the mail that's going to work on this ultralight build. Let's keep opening. And maybe I got the frame that I'm going to use for these 32 bits. So, thank you, Get FPV. Super fast. Just ordered them. Okay, this is from Race Day Quads. I know exactly what's in here. Again, these guys are in Florida. I'm in Florida. Super fast. This is definitely going on this build. Oh, look at that. Battery strap. Awesome. Thank you, Race Day Quads. You're the best. These are the RDQ 2205 naked bottom motors. So these are definitely going on this build. These are going to be perfect on here. They're actually really light. And this ultralight build, that's exactly what I want. And I've never used these before, so we'll see how this build goes with these motors. That's great. The only problem is the screws that come with these motors. That's what I'm worried about, is these arms. Since they're so thick, I don't think these screws are going to work, but let's see. Oh, they just barely get through, and I don't know if you can see on the camera, but they just barely go through, and that is probably not going to work. They're definitely not going to touch the motor, but I don't think I'm going to be trusting that. So I will need to find some longer screws. I know I have some, but I probably don't have enough. So that's one thing I was worried about, but okay, that's going to be used today. And here, I've been waiting for this package forever. And that's what happens when you order from Banggood. I've got a ton of stuff that I ordered. And I think it's all in this one package. And I definitely should have some stuff for this build in here. The flight controller, I really hope is in here. Oh yeah, this probably, I don't even think this is what, maybe. Alright, these are just some 4-inch props, and I'm going to be using these on something else when I get around to doing 4-inch build. Got my 5-inch Cyclones, 50-45. I might throw these on this build. We'll see what happens. But here is what I was waiting for. This is the Racerstar all-in-one ESC flight controller OSD Tattoo F4. This is going on this build for sure, and I can't wait to give this a try. I don't know if people have used these too much. I can't find a lot of information out there. I'm sure there's some bugs with it, but it's going on this build because I wanted to try and get it as light as I can. I know this is in the package, but we're coming in at 27.5 grams, 27.6. So that's definitely going on this build. And this is just another little Race Swoop flight controller, and these are 16 by 16 millimeter. I've been messing with these. I've got this other little build here, and I kind of messed up one of the ESCs. I didn't feel like taking it apart, and I had some soldering to do, so I soldered while it was still together, and I kind of messed up an ESC on there. So, but this thing comes in at I don't know, 39, 40 grams, so I do have to put a camera on still, but it's almost done, and I'm just waiting for the replacement. And here's the frame that the DYS ESCs are going on. I absolutely love these frames. This is my favorite one. I'm going to order a few more of these. I didn't realize how much I really liked these until I started playing with a few other different frames, but I absolutely love these frames. So I should have enough parts to start my build today. So we've got the iFlight 210 5-inch frame. Got my race day quads 2205s, and Racerstar all-in-one. I have had this. I've been playing with this. This is the Eachine. I think they call it TX03 or TX01. I forget. But this is ultralight, and I've got this tiny little. I'm pretty sure it's a CMOS camera because the quality is not great, but it's super light, and I'm going to play with it on this quad. I'm going to try and get it as light as I possibly can. So, alright, that's just an unboxing. Let's see how it goes. Stay tuned for the build. Welcome to my build video. I've been trying to make one of these for a while. I've filmed a few builds and always ended up having problems. Either with the build didn't go right and I had to sit and wait for parts, or the video editing was just too much for my computer to handle. Gonna try and do this in a couple videos. Maybe I can splice them together into one if my computer will handle it. So this is going to be a build with the iFlight SX5 frame. It's a 5-inch frame. Has about 6mm arms. I'm going to be using the race day quads, 2205, 2450 kV motors. These things are pretty light. They're going to be perfect on this build, I hope. Just got everything in today. I'm going to try and make this build as light as I possibly can. I know there's guys out there that can do this, and I've never actually tried to make an ultralight build, but I'm going to be using this Racerstar all-in-one 30 amp ESC, F4 flight controller, OSD, everything. So there's going to be no ESCs on the arm. Just going to be one thing on the stack. This is going to be it. I'm going to be using this really tiny Eachine, I think it's the TX03, the VTX, and this tiny little camera. It's a CMOS. It even has a microphone, but I'm not going to be using that. So I just got all the motors on. This is going to look really great. Couple things that I'm going to need to probably fix is the screws on the bottom are not exactly meant for these 6mm thick arms, so I'm probably going to need to find some longer screws, because I think in a crash these things will probably strip right out. I'm probably going to eventually try and get some longer screws in there, and if I don't have any on hand, I'm going to Loctite these for a test flight and see what happens. So the next step here, I'm going to jump over to the computer with this new Racerstar all-in-one, make sure it's working. I am not going to flash the firmware on it. I'm going to use the firmware that came with it, and in the future, if I do want to update the firmware on this, I might do that. But I did have another Racerstar all-in-one, and I as soon as I got it, I flashed the firmware on it, and I believe that the new firmware might have caused a problem on it. So I'm going to try this without touching the firmware at all. I am going to need to learn about these new 32-bit ESCs because I have never used them before. So we'll see how that goes. One problem that I can see right away is the micro USB port. I'm probably going to be installing this way so I can get to these motor pads. I'm going to have the battery strap coming out the back. I mean the battery wires coming out the back. Although I am mounting a pretty small camera, but you can see in this frame it's going to be tough to get to that micro USB port, so we'll see how it goes. So let's jump over to the computer and see if this thing actually works. Didn't come with an XT60, did it? If it did, I lost it. Next, I'm going to prepare the VTX and the camera. First thing I'm going to do with the camera is try to get in here and desolder this tiny audio cable. I need a very clean tip to do this. So, don't move, don't breathe. Okay, audio cable is out. Now, I had these connected because I was testing it on something else a while ago, so I know it works. Now, what I want to do, have an idea how long I want to have my wires. So for this step, I kind of want to have the flight controller in there, and I recommend that anytime you take apart something, this goes for anything really, you want to just put the screws back in so you don't lose them. I've lost plenty of screws that way. Even if you're taking them off for a second, you do one thing and you look around, your screws are gone. So, sort of planning on having the VTX come out the back like this. So these wires are perfect. They should work alright because my flight controller is going to be sitting like that. Should probably get that in. Probably fast forward because this is kind of boring. So, oh wow, that fits beautiful. Beautiful. Really tight. That's perfect. That'll be nice. Looks really good. So, I already wired. I probably should have explained that this is going to be my receiver. I found the SBus over here. I'm not sure what UART that corresponds to, but we'll find out later. But it did say SBus. So that should be perfect. And these are the 5-volt ground. This is going to power the camera, and this is going to be video out. The camera is going to video in, and it's actually over here, so these wires don't need to be long at all. Alright, I'm getting ready to trim these motor wires. This is probably the thing that I spend the most time on before I do it. I hate cutting these motor wires. I hate doing it. I measure it 100 times just to make sure, and then I always leave extra. I should just do it. I just don't know why. I just don't like doing it. So what I'm gonna do, I always lay it down. I try and trace the path of where I'm gonna have them. Try to put them exactly where I need them, and then leaving extra. So let's see. Alright, here's what I'm going to this is what I'm going to decide to do. I'm going to measure the center. Cut. Measure to the center. Cut. You can always cut more off, but if you cut too much, you've got to add in a splice, and I hate doing that. If you do it to all motors, that's 12 splices you got to go in and do. I've had to do it before, only because I had a set of motors come with really short wires, and they just obviously weren't intended for a 4-in-1 ESC, which I was using, and I had to make a ton of splices. You gotta do it 12 times, you gotta heat shrink it 12 times, you gotta do 12 solders, and you gotta measure it, and it's just a huge pain in the butt. So I'm gonna get started on this, and let me strip these wires and we'll see what happens. Okay, sorry to keep changing camera angles. I don't have the best recording setup. These wires actually turned out to be really hard to strip. I had to do it the old school way with scissors. So first thing, I'm gonna get these tinned up best I can. This is probably not the best way to do it because solder is going to run down the inside of the wire, and that's not what I want. It's going to make the wire very, very stiff. Since I'm going to try to wire these on the underside of the ESCs, the stiff wire is not going to be very good. So I'm kind of just putting a little bit of solder on these. Should be all of them. Okay. Now this is something that I've never tried to do before. So I'm going to do one, see how it goes. So basically I want to have these wires soldered underneath these pads going this way. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to flip it this way. I can't even solder to the underside of these. So it looks like I'm going to be doing it the regular way. You probably can solder to the underside, but I don't trust those tiny, tiny little pads. So here we go. I'm just going to do this old school, regular way. Now, I can probably do it with these still in here, but it's a good idea to take them out. So let's get these pads tinned. Probably should have checked the underside before I made that decision, so oh well. Looks good for now. That should work. Okay. Next, let's do the VTX. Again, I hate cutting wires, but this is gonna end up, man, this needs some hot glue for sure. So I just put a little hot glue on the wires on this camera. I mean, it's a really cheap camera. It's tiny. I'm just using it because it's really light. Just want to see how light I can get this build. It might not stay on forever, depending on how it works. But if anybody else is planning on using this camera, these wires, they're like barely soldered on. It's so tiny that I would put some hot glue on there. So that's what I did. And I actually just trimmed the video wire. I'm having the hardest time cutting these wires off. I've been doing the old school way with scissors, but I don't like to do that. Yeah. Let's see if I can do this. That works. I just don't like doing it. Alright. Okay, now we can get this wire tinned. Alright, this is going to be video in corresponding to the VI pad. There's already solder on these pads. I really don't want to put more on. Let me see if it works without adding solder onto it. Because my solder is not working too great on this board. So if I can get the other solder to work, that'd be great. Now, these wires aren't silicone. I don't know why anybody uses wires that aren't silicone anymore. Especially if they know we're going to be soldering. That was perfect. So their solder is perfect on this board. That's great. Alright, now VTX. This is going to be, caramba, way too much solder on that. Whenever I was testing it. Now, if I can do it like this. VO, video out. Come on. Not great, but it's on there. Wait. And this is the Eachine VTX 03. I'm going to leave everything down in the description below. for all the parts that I used. If anybody's interested in an ultralight build, this one's pretty simple. I would have had this done already if this camera wasn't right here in my face. Between that and the way that I have the lights, it makes it very difficult to do this. Video in, video out, and power to the camera. So I already had these wired, but I'm just going to shorten them a little bit, I guess, because it's not really necessary. I just left that wire a little bit long in case I wanted to move the camera up, down. So these wires don't need to be any longer than that, really. So I'm going to cut them here. And I'm going to try my little melting trick for these non-silicone wires. 10. Of course. I need more solder. There it is. Okay. Looks good. That one also looks good. So BTX wired, camera wired, receiver wired, motor wired. Okay. Now let's get the Heli 32 installed. Alright, time to see if I have everything wired, right? I really hope so. See what happens. BTX is on. Nothing blew up. Good sign so far. Alright, let's get this thing on the computer and make sure everything's spinning the right way. Okay, here we are. all buttoned up. This is the finished product. It feels pretty light to me. Let's see what the final weight comes in at. Alright. $225.6. That's probably better if I weigh it like this. 225.5. Final weight. Pretty happy with that. I thought I could get closer to 200, but after all the wires and zip ties and everything, came in at 225.5. So I'm pretty happy with that. Hopefully I'll be able to do a test flight. One thing with this new all-in-one Racerstar Tattoo F4S flight controller with the ESCs, 32-bit ESCs built in, it comes loaded with Betaflight 3.1.7 or something like that, and the new BLHeli32 suite won't allow me to change anything. It won't let me to access the ESCs at all, and I believe it's because the flight controller is not running Betaflight 3.2 or later. Now, I didn't choose to flash the firmware on this. I believe there's a way to get around it, and there's a way to flash new firmware onto this flight controller. I didn't do it, and since I soldered all the motor wires up straight without crossing any, they're actually all spinning the wrong way. So what I did was I had a couple options. First option was I could have went and flashed the new firmware onto this flight controller, which I didn't want to do. I want to try it the way that it comes without altering it. Or the second option would have been to just unsolder the wires and cross two of the wires, and then I'll get them spinning the correct direction. What I went with was the third option, which I've never done before. I am going to be running inverted prop direction, so the props are going to be spinning the opposite of what they normally do. I've heard there's some pros and cons. I'm going to try it for myself. All you need to do is go into CLI and you got to set the yaw direction, and that's about it, because that's the way they were spinning. I didn't want to unsolder anything. I didn't want to flash the firmware, so that's what I did. We'll see if it works. So yeah, so stay tuned for some flights with this guy, and thanks for watching.